matter of secondary importance. So importance was placed first in forcing the reader to read more deeply in order to understand the essential of the story. Okay. So journalistic style of writing includes news stories, views and comments in the editorials. We have feature articles and human interest stories, which involve business, sports, and lifestyle related news. Okay. So it is a varied mix of information, giving a comprehensive coverage to different aspects that are a part of our social structure. So feature stories require more creative writing, and they often begin with an incident or anecdote that lead to the main subject later in order. Okay. See, why this is done to grab the attention of the reader and lure the reader to read on. And quotes are also an essential part of journalistic writing, where they are employed to advance the story, add authority and credibility to the context. So writing for print journalism is different from writing for broadcast journalism, of course. So in writing for print, there must be an attempt to capture the reader's attention and hold it long enough to disclose important information, right? But when we see broadcast journalism, on the other hand, requires the writer to write a script that another journalist will read. Okay. So as scripts for a television broadcast are generally aired with a video, the writer should remember that the reader is reading the story with the eyes. So such writing therefore should not include information that the viewer will see in the video or hear through the interviews of the people, right? So radio broadcasts are for listeners who obtain the information of a story through the ears, requiring the script to be in conversational style. Okay. See, we have seen that each type of journalistic writing differs from other, keeping in view the unique needs of the target audience using the medium, right? So writing for journalism is vastly different from other types or forms of writing. So focusing on the introduction or lead, and writing in brief or concise language and remaining objective, however, are the essential elements that are valued in journalistic writing. Okay. So if we compare journalistic writing as distinct from other forms of writing, see, journalistic writing is a distinct form of writing with aspect to style, format, vocabulary, and then content adapted to the requirements of the media. So journalistic or news writing is based on facts and has a conventional structure beginning with a lead, then a style which distinguishes it from the other forms, and also it embodies certain characteristics. See, journalists conduct their work in the public arena and strive on being the center of all that is happening. So while a flair for words and an interest in the people around you are common to both journalistic and creative writing, the similarity ends there. That means creative writing involves carrying out the bulk of their work in private. Unlike journalists who become part of the event, which is reflected in the writing, right? Creative writers remain onlookers who weave stories from life situations, or they imagine situations to enlive in their work, okay, through their feature writing, as we have discussed in the last class about feature writing. So journalistic writing involves brevity, speed, and clarity. So for journalists, words are a means to an end, right? Their skill lies in their ability to produce concise, readable prose while meeting deadlines. And timeliness is of utmost importance in this news writing. The creative writers have writers using words to paint pictures or images through observation and imagination. And such writing can be done at leisure, and it is more elaborate and stylized. That means with no word limitations. So constraints on time and word count as well as practical and factual writing are imperative for a good news copy, right? So creative or literary writing is for those who can let imagination soar and dreams manifest without necessarily being practical or factual. So journalistic writing is about being at the heart of the story and reporting things as they unfold, analyzing bare facts and predicting future trends. So it requires play like creative writing, but has to function within limitations of time and space where precision and clarity lend credibility, and also they should assure readability. Joseph Pulitzer, right? He's the famous publisher. He stresses on one of the most important qualities of journalistic writing is, accuracy. And objectivity is another attribute that distinguishes journalistic writing from other forms of writing that are subjective and have no set of rules that have to be necessarily followed too. Okay. So if we follow the basic tenets, news writing is in fact a unique form of writing, which is, reproduction of real events without bias and excessive use of words or literary flourish, right? You have to reveal the facts without being too fancy there. So let us look now at some of the basic tenets of news writing that distinguish it from other forms of writing. The accuracy, as we have already discussed, accuracy is the hallmark of journalistic writing, where facts and figures as well as the happenings in society have to be checked and rechecked for their veracity by a journalist. And most facts raise questions for which answers from authoritative sources make the story accurate and informative. That means if the journalistic writing relates to an important event, accurate reports will answer the where, when, what, why, when, how, the 5W and 1H, right, from relevant sources, and also add a little background or past history. Then facts are also very premise on which journalistic writing rests. Since hard news that is different from a feature, editorial, or say a letter to the editor depends largely on facts, right? So, however, whether it is a feature, column, or editorial, correct representation of facts and figures are an essential part of journalistic writing. So, while comments are individual opinions, facts are not to be distorted. They are things as they exist, right? Then we have authenticity. The accuracy and factual representation result in authenticity when based on presentation and then corroboration of facts from different sources. They have to be authentic, right? You need to cross-check. Then sourcing, that means journalistic writing. They rely heavily on sourcing, which is nothing but disclosing information. So when one is reconstructing an event with inputs from eyewitnesses, they become the sources. So similarly, a report about the financial situation in the country gains, authenticity when there is a quote from the finance minister or a higher up in the finance ministry. So there are some pieces of journalistic writing where the sources wish to remain anonymous. Okay, but but we can refer to them as according to reliable sources, right? But here too, the journalist must be sure that the sources before they have to verify the authenticity of the source before writing his report. You need to be sure about the source. So not mentioning the source is often done to protect the source who may have given some information or confidential information, right? So when it comes to style, certain media publications have a style of writing and presentation that are generally followed to ensure consistency in editing practice. And the writing style is compiled by some organizations in a style book that the employees refer to, in the journalistic writing. So generally the style used is simple, direct, and also easy to understand by the average reader. And storage of space where many events in the state, country, and outside world would have, they have to be reported in a crisp and concise manner, right? With the, we have to highlight the main points here. So short, compact, and informative stories are an important part of journalistic writing. Okay, they garner both space as well as the attention of the reader. So you have to keep all these points in mind while writing for a journalistic media. See, news media, we can say it is the chief purveyor of information and opinion about public affairs in today's world, right? In a democratic society, access to free information plays an important role in creating a system of checks and balances, and also information gathered by dependent, media sources where other to journalistic standards, they can empower ordinary citizens. And journalistic media can vary diversely from print publishing to electronic broadcasting, and also from newspaper to television channels. Okay, then as well as to the web and digital technology. So from just print media, journalistic media spread to broadcasting media like radio and television. They had brought into its fold a very large section of citizens who have no access to education, and they were largely illiterate. Okay, so this made a huge difference to the quality of society with a large number of citizens who were illiterate. They were getting first-hand information about politics, development, and the society around them. And it also enabled them to form independent opinions through direct access to information. And the advent of digital technology and publication of news on the internet over the last 2 decades has resulted in profound changes, and also they have opened new avenues for journalistic media. So people are now able to access news through e-readers or their smartphones, and also their other electronic devices, challenging media houses to modernize their digital wing, right? Now we have apps, right? So they also have to upgrade the news stories with more information to meet the challenge of instant availability of news, because of the news being available anytime or anywhere in the world. The constant upgradation has to be there. Then easy access to information has also resulted in a new kind of journalism called citizen journalism, okay, where ordinary citizens play a greater role in the process of news making. So from sending pictures relating to civic problems or uncommon occurrences to newspapers, or recording footage to video cameras and then uploading them on YouTube, citizens themselves are providing news that is discovered and used by mainstream news media outlets. So blogs and a wide variety of social media platforms have provided a wide choice of news and views when compared to traditional media organizations now, which has changed the complexion, context, and also the coverage of news. So with increased scope and possibilities, journalistic media provide different information to a variety of people through their reporting, editorial views, and comments, okay? Then we also have advocacy journalism, investigative journalism, photojournalism, and we also have tabloid journalism, okay? So despite the advent of different journalistic media, which have their own characteristics, way of handling news, what has remained common to all media are the basic principles of truthfulness, accuracy, objectivity, and public accountability. That is the core of journalism in any part of the world. Okay. See, the desire to know is basic to all human beings, right? It began with the onset of communication, and soon it developed into an organized system of news as we know it today, right? So providing information about things, people, events, and occurrences in the immediate proximity as well as places all over the world, or the detailed analysis and views, is what makes news a part of the reader's routine and his source to all important information, right? So because see, they chronicle events that have occurred over the last 24 hours and also analyze events that may have occurred before that, right? So writing for newspapers is distinct from other forms of writing, and facts and credibility are therefore the chief components of news writing. Okay. See, the most challenging part of news writing is what comprises news, for which there are several definitions. What is news, right? The most popular definition by American journalist Charles Anderson Dana, from 1819 to 1897, is, the definition that dog bites man, not being news, as opposed to man bites dog, being news, okay, came from the popular assumption that the reader preferred the unusual to the usual. So now there are some other popular definitions of news, okay. See, what you see is news, what you know is background, and what you feel is opinion, okay. This was coined by Lester Markle, who was an American journalist, okay. Then another definition of news can be: put it before them briefly, so they will read it; clearly, so they will appreciate it; picturesquely, so they will remember it; and above all, accurately, so they will be guided by its light. So this was coined by Joseph Pulitzer, who was an American publisher, right? So these are some of the basic definition of news. So through decades of journalism, newsmen applied certain criteria, right? Some of their own and some in response to the needs of the reader in determining what is newsworthy or worth publishing. So these came to be known as news values, which are applied while accommodating news stories in the newspaper. See, while news desks have different perceptions of news, what happens today and differently becomes the focal point for news stories. See, for example, a train arriving on time every day does not get news space, right? But the late arrival of the train is news. And factors like proximity, human interest, then news about personalities and celebrities, then issues which are a consequence of an event and areas of conflict, they are the most important for journalistic writing, right? So news writing is a unique form of writing where facts and comment coexist comfortably. It is a specialized form of writing that has evolved from objectivity and also readability coupled with factual information. Okay. So it is a reproduction of reality without bias, comment, or literary flourish. So straight news stories, which are an account of information gathered from sources directly or indirectly, are those that establish the credibility of a newspaper, right? And utmost care has to be taken in making them readable and factual. So here a reporter reports what he sees and hears. So he is present at the scheduled events like press conferences, press meetings, demonstrations, then whether it's strike, rally, or inaugural programs, or it can be fashion show or any cultural events, right? So here his writing is a clinical and factual narrative where he merely states that an action has taken place, right? And it also follows the inverted pyramid model with the most important information at the beginning of the story. Okay, so this requires accuracy. See, as one cannot give wrong information and facts and have to be, they have to be checked and rechecked. Also, facts also have to be authentic and give the reader a multi-dimensional view as selective representation of facts can affect authenticity, right? So for a report to be authentic, facts have to be corroborated from different sources and sourcing or attributing a quote to someone who discloses the information can add to the credibility and also they can generate in the reader, right, interest, and also they can garner feedback. Okay. And then reporting direct news stories requires the reporter to follow the style of the daily he works for, right? As I told you about the style book of each organization have their different style books, style sheets, which is mentioned in the style book. So news analysis is also an interpretative form of writing, which gives a more detailed and explicit picture of a news story that has already appeared in the newspaper, and it seeks to interpret the significance of the contents, the background information, as well as repercussions so that the reader gets the complete picture. So this kind of writing does not seek to arouse passions, emotions, or sympathy. Because here, researching facts becomes very important as also presenting them in the proper perspective. And the reporter can use language with a little flourish and be more descriptive while writing analysis, which are generally read by discerning readers who want to know more about the event, right? So news interviews and feature articles are also exclusive interviews with persons in news, and it can be in the question answer mode or also pieces of writing which require both literary flourish or factual information, right? So news interviews are generally interviews with persons in the news, and they can make or break political careers, the political careers, the increase or decrease following and also they can increase the followers or decrease as well. And generally, they can provoke a discussion or debate. So there can be interviews with important functionaries which may contain information which is crucial to the country, right? uh, like defense information that can affect international relations, or reveal details related to scams or underhand dealings. Then feature articles they are very softer and more colorful works of writing, which involve interview, travel, and leisure articles. Then film and book reviews, etc., where the writing is creative and the language is more colorful. Okay, so editorials. Coming to editorials, See, the regular newspaper editorial is a piece of writing that reflects the opinion or stand taken by a newspaper, right? Which is always presented on a specific page and with a specific word limit. So it is usually a serious comment on a current event, and also it reflects the ideology and stand of the news publication. And there are also general light-hearted editorials where the writer picks up not in the news topic, but goes on to illustrate his views in a lighter vein here. So many newspapers have such editorials for a leisurely read, especially on Sundays, right? If you open a Sunday newspaper, you'll find some interesting editorials. And there are analytical news pieces on the editorial page, which are generally of a serious nature. And it also reflects the view of the writer, which is not necessarily that of news publication, right? So column is an article written by the same author on a regular basis, okay? And there are weekly columns or fortnightly columns, usually by well-known journalists who write on subjects that interest them or make a comment based on a recent happening. And there can be specific columns devoted to women's issues, business details, or political comments, okay? And a columnist usually has a special name for the column and is identified by his or her specific style of writing and approach to a subject. Then we have newsletters, which refers to news sent by reporters who are outside the center of publication of the newspaper. See, it may be a district newsletter, state newsletter, a newsletter from the country's capital, or from even international locations like London or Washington, okay? So while a news story refers to a single happening on a single day, a newsletter seeks to review what has been happening over a period of time in. So a newsletter can be about some event that has gained importance or which has eventually led to a problem or a phenomenon. So writing for newspapers in all its variety, it requires a lucid and simple style, accuracy, and then authenticity and style that conforms to the standard and style of the publications that is concerned. Okay. Then writing for magazines. A magazine article is a piece of non-fiction writing which is targeted for a specific interest group, right? So magazine articles allow a greater depth of treatment when compared to most other media with a vivid display and also clarity of message. So writing a magazine feature differs from other newspaper writing because as it allows more space to develop a story and also more time to research it. So the most important qualities for magazine writings are relevance and appropriateness. See, there are several weekly, fortnightly, and monthly magazines, and also there are magazines for specific groups, right? There are magazines for women, men, health, or lifestyle, interior designing, spiritual magazines, sports magazines. We have film magazines. Then we also have business magazines, then political magazines. They all flood the markets in different parts of the world, right? And travel magazines are very popular for, in-flight reading, and also they are generally informative as well as entertaining. So see, first you need to decide on your genre. That means writing for magazines requires selecting the genre and topic. So here one has to make sure to choose a topic on which either one is, an expert or or genuinely interested in, right? So high quality magazine articles can emerge when the topics selected are from your area of expertise or interest. The publishers always look for articles that contain in-depth information or those that are authoritative, right? So knowing subjects that are uppermost in the minds of the people help in selecting issues which are topical. So this requires a thorough knowledge of current affairs through regular reading of newspapers, as well as following stories telecast by the electronic media. Then you need to find the angle for the story. See, the slant or angle is the central point or crux of the story, okay, which gets the reader interested in reading further. So where are you coming from? Are you going to report on the subject or be innovative and tell others about your ideas? Or it is for the writer to decide on the approach that is best suited to bring out quality writing, right? Where ideas flow naturally and the pleasure of reading a well-written article remains long after it has been read. And also you need to research your subject, right? After deciding on the topic, a lot of attention has to be paid on research so that your writing has depth in the form of invaluable background information. So check out the information available on the topic chosen by you and see if your line of thought on the subject has already been covered. So if it has not been covered, it is an excellent opportunity to present a fresh perspective, which will be, read with greater interest. So adding relevant facts and statistics makes for better reading and gives authenticity to your work. Okay. Then you have to create an outline, right? Create a structure that you will follow while writing your article with the introduction, then body and conclusion. And then you can also add testimonials or graphics, images, and statistics, right? If you feel it will enhance readability, and also it should provide useful additional information. Then you can use quotations and anecdotes. The direct quotations make the writing more personal and readable, right? So if you observe, it also breaks the monotony by making the writing natural, right? We have relevant quotations made by eminent persons. They can evoke interest and also it can create a natural flow towards the subject. So anecdotes also embellish an article by illustrating a point here. Then you can add description. The magazine articles are lapped up when they are very descriptive. These words paint pictures, they can create images and it can evoke thoughts, right? Colorful, expansive, evocative, and innovative writing has a special place while writing for magazines. You have to be more creative. You have the freedom to approach an article. You have to, take it forward, and then it all depend on the flow of thoughts and words, and the central theme that comes from through the writing. So you have ample freedom here. You have to follow your style, right? Unlike news articles which require you to follow a specific format, magazine articles are more flexible and creative. Okay. So you should strive to write in the language of the reader so that you are understood better. So magazine articles that sound upbeat and warm are better received as they're meant to both inform and entertain. So magazine writing, whatever the genre is, a more flexible and creative form of writing, which provides room for innovation and also interpretation. And it has many varied approaches and styles according to the publication that carries it. So they are more informative with in-depth research, breathing life into bare facts, and also descriptive vocabulary, embellishing them with power and intensity. So magazine writing requires better language skills, knowledge of grammar, and freshness of approach coupled with intense research if it has to make an impact on readers. Okay. So understood about writing for magazines, how to write for magazines. You need to be more creative, okay? Then when it comes to use of journalistic jargons, what is a jargon? Jargon refers to a special words or expression, okay, which is used by a profession or a group that are very difficult for others to understand. Okay, like other professions, journalists do have their own style and usage of words that can be termed as journalistic jargon. Okay. See, most of the articles written by correspondents or regular contributors or freelance journalists appearing in newspapers and magazines, they have a certain style and usage of words, right, that broadly come under the category of journalistic jargon. So the use of specific words by journalists add punch to the sentences, and also it connects with the readers who get used to this style over years of reading. And newspapers normally have they have this dedicated readers who have a period of time. They develop a comfort level with the jargon and also with the style of the publication that can be addictive. So these loyal readers are satisfied only when they read the news in the publication that they are used to. One example of this can be the Hindu newspaper. Okay, if you observe the jargon, the style of writing is completely different, right? And people enjoy reading those articles. So journalistic jargon is an intrinsic part of writing that requires skill and speed also, okay, when compared to other forms of writing. And a journalist must write at once, then what he has to say. He is also spurred into action by his subject matter. That means readers will find intensely interesting today, but may find less interesting tomorrow or perhaps a couple of hours later, right? So he must write his story now or never without compromising on quality. So journalistic writing, which is in fact an excellent training in alertness and flexibility, therefore, has its typical jargon to convey content with speed and clarity. So word length and also sentence length and format, they play a very key role while writing a news story. And in journalism, a source is a person, and publication on record that gives timely information, right? Example of sources include official records of publications or people involved with governance or business or organizations or corporations, right? Or witnesses of crime, accidents or events or any person at the scene of action. So reporters are expected to develop and cultivate sources, especially, if they regularly cover a topic, okay, which is known as a beat. In journalistic jargon, a reporter on a particular beat is an expert on that particular subject or political party because he regularly covers all press conferences, special interviews, or exclusive stories pertaining to the field assigned to him. And off the record is a term used to journalists writing to refer, to sources wishing to maintain the confidentiality of information. That means, however, certain publications and media houses do not publish off the record information as a matter of policy because they believe this kind of reporting may not be truthful and may even be misleading sometimes, right? So it's always better be safe than sorry. And information about the surprise event or breaking news is referred to as tip-off. And those reading investigative news stories are familiar with its usage. But sentences like the police raided the gambling den on a tip-off from an ex-employee as are part of the journalistic jargon, right? Or we can say the style of writing. So information that leads to uncovering more information, it's referred to as a lead. And informed sources and inside information, okay? These are some of the terms used by journalists. And however, since the purpose of journalism is to convey news as it is, they have to offer a background information relating to current developments and interpret what is happening around us. So following a simple and music style without excessive use of jargon is considered the best style of writing. Okay. So let me quickly summarize. Writing is all about, using words to convey messages which are very creative, informative, as well as entertaining. Okay. So it is a way of expressing ideas in a readable, comprehensive, and informative manner. And the most effective writing is simple, clear, and precise, where the central idea is understood by the reader. And there are many forms and styles of writing, but we can broadly divide them into 4 kinds as journalistic writing, literary writing, and fiction writing. Okay. So journalistic writing is distinct from other forms of writing, and news style or journalistic style has come to refer to the prose style, which is used in media such as newspapers, then radio and television. And writing for the print media is different from other types of writing with regard to its approach, the language, the content, and also it depends on the intent, right? And news writing answers 5 W's and 1 H. That is the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Okay. And at the very beginning of the article, a journalist have to cover all these important information, right? And journalistic writing is both explicit as well as precise. Then accuracy, timeliness, credibility, and brevity are important here. Because journalistic writing is about writing with punch and also making a realistic representation of an event, informative and also readable. Then if we talk about the other form of writing, literary writing is creative and original writing that includes writing poetry, short stories, novels, plays, or scripts. Okay. And this kind of writing is structured and uses words for the rhetorical effect of their flow, sound, emotive, and also descriptive qualities. And fiction writing is writing that is not based on facts, but one that the writer creates to entertain or convey his point of view. Novelists, playwrights, short story writers, dramatists, and even screenwriters are writers of fiction writing. Okay. It involves 5 elements like the plot, the character, setting, theme, and the style. And a genre is one, kind of writing of a work, and fiction writing has many genres. And fiction writing has many genres like crime, we can have fantasy, detective fiction, science fiction, mystery. We have Western fiction and inspirational fiction. All these are different forms of fiction writing. So journalistic media can vary diversely from print publishing to electronic broadcasting and from newspapers to television channels. And over the years, it has also come to include web and digital technology, right? So the desire to know is basic to all human beings, and news provide information about things, peoples, events as they occur. So news writing includes writing news stories, analysis, interviews, and feature editorials and columns. Okay, writing for magazines involves greater depth, a more vivid display, and better clarity of the message. So there are a variety of magazines in the market, and writing for them has to be marked by relevance and appropriateness. The journalistic jargon is the typical words or expressions used by journalists in their writing, while the general, jargon and style of writing in a lucid and clear manner is common to all journalistic writing. And each publication has its own characteristic style, language, and presentation of news, which is mentioned in the style book. Okay. So this is all about journalistic form of writing and how the journalistic form of writing is distinct from other forms of writing. Okay. So now you're already familiar with the various forms of writing and how journalistic writing is different in style, right? The technique and purpose from other forms of writing also is very important. See the importance of language, content, identification of the target audiences, and the tools and techniques of writing and communication. So writing is one of the most popular forms of communication and mass media, particularly the print media. And it is very crucial for communication, right? Since communication is a prerequisite for journalism, see the use of language and content in writing, as well as the tools, techniques, and styles of writing for effective communication has to be mastered upon. A journalist has to be aware of all these things, right? The tools, the techniques of writing. Then when it comes to language, see language not only helps in communication, but also defines a socio-economic and cultural value system, right? It is essential to every interaction that it is part of our daily life. See, it is a two-way street that can never be improved, right? Where an individual has to interact with the people around him. So language helps us to communicate effectively as we are able to articulate our thoughts, right? Communicate our desires, and also we understand the world around us through interaction, right? Centered on the language we speak, and also the use of language in our writing. So through language, we communicate with other people as well as we make sense of the experiences around us. So our language is the most important part of our being, and it defines our cultural ethos and group identification, okay? While the spoken word is very important, we have to look at language used in written communication. Okay. So both has their own set of importance. Then in order to choose the most effective language while writing, the writer must consider the objective of the writer or document, right? See, the context in which it is being written and also for whom it is written, that is the audience, the target audience. So as a writer, it is important not only to think about what you want to say, but how you say it. The style, tone, and clarity of the writing are determined by the manner in which language is used in the narrative, right? So the language used cannot be uniform, and it varies according to who it is written for, the audiences. So effective language has 6 main characteristics, and they are like it is specific and not vague, concise and not verbose, familiar and now they are not outdated, precise and clear without ambiguity. They are constructive and also it is appropriately formal. So when language is specific, the reader is able to visualize the details described. So expressing oneself with as few words as possible is the quality of a good writer. And the language has to be straightforward and not meandering. So when you come straight to the point, readers will be able to grasp what is written with better clarity, okay? Rather than when you use words that are not direct and mostly they beat around the bush, right? You don't have to do that. So one must avoid using words that are redundant and filler words, okay, which are used for effect and serve no purpose in the sentences. Writing in the language that is familiar or used on a daily basis by people makes them identify better with the content. So if you use words that the reader cannot understand, there arises a gap between the reader and the writer, okay? And the message is lost there. So one should also use words that are precise so that there is very little room for misinterpreting your message. Okay, there is no confusion. There should be no room for ambiguity there. And constructive language faces a potentially negative message because in a positive manner, whereas the destructive language directs blame. That means, see, language that is formal or less formal needs to be decided by the writer depending on the situation as well as the target audience. First, see who are your audiences, okay? Whether they can understand your language or not. You have to keep in mind whether your target audiences are students or professionals. You need to bear in that thing in your mind. Then the language used in the media should be simple and uncomplicated, right? Use of high sounding words should be avoided there as they defeat the very purpose for which the write-up is meant, right? Which is conveying the message in an easily understandable manner. So the reader can grasp the meaning very easily when sentences are short and the words are simple. So while writing for the media, you should constantly keep the capacity of the common reader to understand what you present to him. And simple and telling words and sentences have the capacity to arrest the attention of the reader. And also it can sustain his interest. Then idiomatic usages that are in vogue, they will, embellish the write-ups and make the reader go through the whole piece with sustained interest. So you have to keep in mind all these points. So in short, we can say that writing for the media requires writing in language that is simple and easy to comprehend by the common reader. It should be clear and precise language. It is what appeals to the reader and ensures that the purpose of communication is served effectively. Okay. So when the message or content that you convey is most important for communication skills, then if there is no quality content, the writing fails to make an impact. Okay, no matter how well you use your language skills there. See, although the term is, please, there is no disputing the fact that content is king. We say that, right? Especially in advertising. See, in any kind of writing, from an official document to an informative article to advertising to various websites on the social media. So the content that you're going to write will be based on an idea, a message, or a response to something happening around you, and it cannot be arbitrary. So good content requires clarity of thought, planning, and research. So once you're clear about your thoughts, you need to put them down in a proper sequence. Then a good beginning not only catches the interest of the reader, but gets him curious to read on. Then there is the opening sentences of your write-up. It should be eye-catching and it should also set the tone for the rest of the content, right? See, after deciding on the theme and beginning well, the focus should be on dividing the rest of the content in subsequent paragraphs in a systematic manner, okay? Which comes through clarity and also writing practice. A logical sequence of ideas should be sustained. And, you have to sustain it with facts and figures wherever necessary. You can use quotations from experts and also case studies, which will enhance the quality of your content. Then important points in the place of, you have to avoid the superfluous ones. That means you have to avoid the complicated words. Then an article with well-written content, it sustains the interest of the reader and increases his thirst for knowledge. Okay. And content for media writing, whether it is a news story or feature article, it has to be comprehensive, informative, and complete. Because half-hearted attempts at writing and weak content have to be avoided it should not deviate from the central point of the article by, incorporating unrelated topic or ideas in your story. So writing for the media has to be as comprehensive as possible. Okay. If the write-up is sprinkled with human interest stories, the story will draw the reader further to itself. So if it is a photo feature or selection of photographs or accompanying the write-up, it should be done very carefully. And crisp and attractive caption should be used to highlight the photo feature. And here less but effective words should be used and more attention should be paid to the pictures. And clarifying your thoughts, identifying the key points, deciding on a logical order, And then you need to also use very short paragraphs, okay? Provide information and have a good introduction to your writing. They are the key points that need to be kept in mind while deciding, deciding on the content. And most importantly, the target audiences, your reader, they comes first. Okay. Then, see, writing for different media requires skills that are usually dependent both on the medium and the target audiences. So, writing styles have evolved in newspapers, radio, and television due to the unique nature of each medium, right? And to the manner in which audience consumes the medium. So, newspaper readers are in each group who are generally educated, well informed, and from a higher socioeconomic group compared to the radio television viewers, right? You agree that? Since many of them they are influential decision makers themselves and are from urban settlements, the language, content, and the analysis and approach with regard to writing for newspapers and magazines is vast. They are entirely different from other forms of media such as electronic or radio, because you are sure your newspaper audiences are elite. They are well-educated people. So you can communicate in a better manner when compared to electronic media like television and radio, because you don't know the audiences. You don't know your audiences, whether they are from urban area or rural area. So that you need to keep in mind, okay, before deciding on the program. See, further, unlike the consumers of the electronic media, the reader has no time constraints there, right? The newspaper reader has the choice of reading the newspaper at his leisure and whenever he likes to. That is not in case with radio, television, okay, which have they have their fixed time schedules, and once a program is missed, it is missed forever unless it is recast, right? So those writing for the newspapers should keep in mind these factors and make the writing as comprehensive and also they have to make it as informative as possible. And also they should keep the readers abreast of news through their right analysis and interpretation of events. And the writers should make every effort to provide different views to satisfy the reader's thirst for information. So all these points have to be kept in mind while writing for the newspapers. And the reading of a newspaper matches bottom-up editing, right? Where the editor sometimes may remove the last few lines for want of space, as news is covered in the order of importance in the inverted pyramid model. See, where all the relevant points are accommodated in the beginning, the reader's eyes, they scan the headlines on a page. If the headline indicates a new story of his interest, the reader looks at the first paragraph. And if that also proves interesting, the reader continues, right? So this is a general tendency of people, the reader. So the reader who stops short of the end of the story is basically doing what the editor does in throwing words away from the bottom, right? So the reader therefore looks at the most informative and interesting aspects of news, and the writer will sustain his interest if he does so. So since newspaper stories are not consumed sequentially as in radio and television, telecast, the writing style in newspapers is different. So a newspaper reader can begin reading whatever he likes first. Okay. That means, for example, a sports enthusiast may read a sports review before he reads the first page stories. He can do that. He has ample freedom. So stories in a newspaper or magazine can be read and reread either for better clarity or for the sheer pleasure of a well-written article, right? So the average newspaper reader looks at his newspaper to provide better background information about events, more facts and figures, and different viewpoints that better his understanding of any topic. So the newspaper reader is a target audience who expects precise, descriptive, informative, and analytical pieces of writing. So he can refer to his newspaper article, preserve it, and keep it at any convenient time, right? So writing for the print medium is therefore done after taking all these aspects into consideration. Okay. So this is all about writing for different forms of media, especially the print media, newspapers, and magazines. Okay. So we have also discussed about, the distinctive form of writing, journalistic writing, distinct from other forms of writing as well when compared to literary writing and fictional writing as well. So that's all for today. See you tomorrow in the next class. Bye.